In my last video, I talked about what differentiates languages and how language families are defined. In this video, I want to do a deep dive into each individual language family, specifically the largest language families in the world. There are two main ways to group languages into families: linguistic typology and genealogical linguistics. The main focus of my last video was linguistic typology. I explained how by looking at a language's phonology, morphology, and syntax, you can see how certain languages are similar. If you want to learn more about these topics, you can go watch the video, and it will really help you understand this video. Along with finding these similarities between languages' structure, to build a language family, words themselves must also be compared. Often when languages are found to have similar words and structure, linguists try to find a common ancestor for these languages. This is called genealogical linguistics. All languages in a single language family are considered to be descended from one language called Proto and then the language family name. For example, Proto-Indo-European is the language that all Indo-European languages are thought to have descended from. For comparing words, structure, and history, languages are grouped into language families. These families can range from a single language, called an isolate, to a family with hundreds of languages and billions of speakers. An interesting idea about language families is that it is very likely humans only developed language once in ancient Africa from between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago. This would mean that technically all languages are related to each other and are considered part of the same family. But over the millennia, language is diversified, and by today, they are different enough from each other that we can't tell that they were ever related. This also suggests that any languages that would have been between families have gone extinct. So, for example, there was some common ancestor between Indo-European and Sino-Tibetan language families, and as they diverged from each other, there were languages that connected them. But eventually, these languages died out, and the families were so different from each other that they didn't look like they were ever related. Now, onto the families. The language family with the most speakers is the Indo European language family. This family contains English, as well as many of the most famous languages in the world. There are around 3.5 billion native speakers of Indo European languages. Most Indo European languages are fusional, while some, like English and Persian, are analytic. I explained this in depth in my last video, but in general, analytic languages have shorter words, while fusional and agglutinative languages have longer words, and polysynthetic languages have the longest words. Most European languages use SVO word order, while Indo-Aryan languages use SOV word order. As it is the largest language family, many different writing systems are used to write Indo-European languages. These include Cyrillic for many Slavic languages, Persian for many Iranic languages, Brahmic Abugida scripts for many Indo-Aryan languages. There are also some lesser used scripts that are only used for one language, like the Greek script and the Armenian script. The most spoken Indo-European language is Spanish, with over 500 million speakers. A famous feature of the Indo-European languages is gender, which only a couple other languages use outside of the family. Of course, not all Indo-European languages use gender, as English is a non-gendered language. There are two main theories of where Indo-European languages originated, with one theory stating they originated in Anatolia around 7000 BC, but the more commonly supported theory says they originated in the Pontic steppe around 6000 BC. This corresponds to the areas of Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan to the north of the Black and Caspian Seas. In this theory, the Indo-Europeans were a nomadic people who spoke Proto-Indo-European and began to spread out around Eurasia. They slowly spread to the east, and by 1500 BC, Indo-European languages were being spoken in and around Persia and the Indian subcontinent. The languages spoken in these areas were Avestan in Persia and Sanskrit in India, which would evolve into Persian and Hindustani respectively. The Indo-Europeans also spread to the west, and by 2500 BC, they reached Central Europe. They came to Greece by 2000 BC. Over the millennia, the Indo-European languages evolved into their own subfamilies. In orange are the Indo-Aryan languages, spoken natively in the Indian subcontinent by around 1.5 billion people, or 42% of Indo-European speakers. This branch includes languages such as Hindustani, or the languages of Hindi and Urdu, Bengali, Marathi, and Punjabi. A feature of Indo-Aryan languages is split ergativity, which means they use the morphosyntactic ergative alignment in certain cases, instead of just the nominative and accusative cases of the other Indo-European languages. In hot pink are the Romance languages, spoken in Southern Europe and Latin America by around 800 million people, or 25% of Indo-European speakers. This family includes languages such as Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. A feature of Romance languages is their extensive conjugation system, which means the end of verbs change suffixes to show grammatical meaning. In purple are the Germanic languages, spoken in Northern Europe, North America, and Oceania by around 500 million people. These languages include German, Dutch, English, and Swedish. A feature of Germanic languages is the strong versus weak verb distinction, where some verbs change the vowel inside the word, like sing to sung, for past tense, while other verbs just change the letter at the end, like walk to walked. In blue are the Slavic languages, spoken by around 300 million people, mostly in Eastern Europe. Slavic languages include Russian, Polish, and Serbian. A feature of Slavic languages is that every verb comes in two forms: imperfective, which is an ongoing action, and perfective, which is completed. In pink are the Iranian languages, with around 250 million speakers, mostly in the Middle East. Iranian languages include Persian, Pashto, and Kurdish. Iranian languages also use split ergativity like the Indo-Aryan languages. Other smaller branches include Armenian in dark purple, Nuristani in weird green, Baltic in green, Greek in light blue, Albanian in yellow, and Celtic in dark green. The language family with the second most native speakers is the Sino-Tibetan family in East and Southeast Asia. Sino-Tibetan languages are spoken by around 1.4 billion people. Almost all Sino-Tibetan languages use analytical morphology. This is largely because of the Chinese writing system, which forces words to be shorter. The Chinese languages use SVO word order and the Chinese script, but most Tibeto-Burman languages use SOV word order and South Brahmic scripts. By far, the most spoken Sino-Tibetan language is Mandarin, with almost a billion speakers. There are also two theories on the origin of the Sino-Tibetan languages, with one proposing they arose in northern China around 4000 BC, and the other proposing southwest China or northeast India around 7000 BC. Either way, these languages spread throughout East Asia and became the main language family of early Chinese dynasties, which helped spread the family with the expansion of these empires. The vast majority of Sino-Tibetan speakers speak a language which is considered a Chinese or Sinitic language. These Sinitic languages are a subfamily of the Sino-Tibetan family and are in reddish pink. Sinitic languages are spoken natively by around 1.3 billion people, or over 94% of all Sino-Tibetan speakers. All Sinitic languages can also be called Chinese languages. These languages are written using the same writing system, but are very different when spoken. They include Mandarin, Wu, Cantonese, Hakka, and Min. A classic feature of Sinitic languages is their tonal variety, with each language having between 4 and 6 tones. These tones change the meaning of the word. The rest of the Sino-Tibetan languages are part of the Tibeto-Burman languages, with the largest of these subfamilies being Lolo-Burmese. Tibeto-Burman languages are some of the most diverse languages on Earth. Most Tibeto-Burman languages are analytic, but some could be considered more agglutinative or fusional. Many Tibeto-Burman languages also use the rare ergative-absolutive alignment. The only one of these subfamilies with any large amount of speakers is Lolo-Burmese in Tan, with around 50 million speakers, the vast majority of which speak Burmese, which is the national language of Myanmar. The other subfamilies are Tibetic in orange, Chiangic in turquoise, Tamagonic in yellow, Tani in purple, Sal in red, Maitai in green, Kuki-Chin in pink, and Karenik in blue. Languages in these subfamilies include Tibetan, Dzongkha, the national language of Bhutan, and Karen, which is split between Thailand and Myanmar. The third largest language family, by number of speakers, is very close between the Afroasiatic and Niger-Congo language families, each with around 600 million speakers. For my list, I am placing Afroasiatic above Niger-Congo, but this could be flipped as data on Niger-Congo languages is very untrustworthy. Afroasiatic languages are spoken by around 630 million people in the Middle East, North, and East Africa. Almost all Afroasiatic languages are fusional. For word order, most use SVO, but Cushitic languages use SOV. As well as these orders, Classical Arabic used VSO word order, and officially, in Modern Standard Arabic, they also use this word order. But when spoken, most Arabic dialects use SVO. Most Afroasiatic languages use the Arabic script, but some Berber languages use their own native script. Some languages use Latin, and Amharic uses their own native abugida called Gayaz. By far, the most spoken Afroasiatic language is Arabic, with over 300 million speakers. A distinctive feature of Afroasiatic languages are pharyngealized consonants, or consonants which are produced in the pharynx, which is deep in the throat and creates what could be considered guttural sounds. Because the Afroasiatic language family has some of the oldest attested languages in human history, it has been very hard to find the origin of the family. It is likely it originated somewhere on the African continent, anywhere between 18,000 and 8,000 years ago. Some of the earliest languages of civilization were part of this family in ancient Egyptian and Akkadian. Over the millennia, they spread across North Africa and the Middle East, but in around 600 AD, the Arab invasions changed the internal spread as the Arabic language began to dominate the family. The Arabic language is part of the subfamily called Semitic languages, which are spoken by around 430 million people, or 73% of all Afroasiatic speakers. This includes languages such as Arabic, Hebrew, and Amharic. A distinctive feature of Semitic languages is root pattern morphology. This changes not only the end of the word, like in many Indo-European languages, but mostly focuses on changing the vowels in the center of the word to change the meaning of the root word. Chadic languages in yellow are spoken by around 80 million people, mostly in northern Nigeria, southern Niger, and Chad. Chadic languages include Hausa and Mubi. Chadic languages have a complex system of consonants which use tone and with emphasis being able to be placed on a consonant. Cushitic languages, in blue, are spoken by around 80 million people in the Horn of Africa and include languages such as Somali and Oromo. Unlike Semitic languages, Cushitic languages rely more on suffixes based on gender. Berber languages, in purple, have around 40 million native speakers and include languages such as Kabyle and Tuareg. Berber languages also use root pattern morphology and change words through prefixes and suffixes for plural markings. The Omotic languages, in red, are much smaller, with only around 8 million speakers in Ethiopia, and the largest language is Wolaita. The Niger-Congo language family has a similar number of speakers to the Afroasiatic family, with approximately 600 million, but this number could be much larger, as many countries where Niger-Congo languages are spoken have unreliable governments when it comes to collecting data. This family has the largest number of languages, with over 1,400. The Niger-Congo language family is the first family I will talk about that is disputed. The main part of the family, in Central and some of West Africa, is widely considered to be related, but some of the periphery languages in Western Africa, called the Atlantic and Mende languages, along with some smaller languages, are disputed. Niger-Congo languages are split about half and half between analytic and agglutinative morphology. Most Niger-Congo languages use SVO word order, but the Mende languages use SOV. Almost all Niger-Congo languages use the Latin script, as few native writing systems existed before colonialism. The largest language in the family is Yoruba in Nigeria, with around 45 million speakers. Similarly to the Afroasiatic languages, the origin of the Niger-Congo languages is disputed, but is generally believed to be located somewhere in western to central Africa. The expansion of the family likely began as the Sahara began to desertify around 3500 BC. The spread greatly increased during the Bantu migrations, which was a long process that took place between 2000 BC and 1500 AD, where the Bantu speakers replaced the native peoples, possibly Khoisan and Pygmies, in Central and Southern Africa. This caused the Bantu languages in red to become the most spoken of the family, with around 300 million speakers, or 50% of Niger-Congo languages. Bantu languages include Swahili, Lingala, and Xhosa. A distinctive feature of Bantu languages is their diverse noun class system, which groups nouns into many different categories like tools, or people, or food. The second largest subfamily is the Volta Niger family in orange, situated in western Nigeria, Benin, and Togo, with around 100 million speakers. This includes languages like Yoruba and Igbo. Most Volta Niger languages are tonal languages. The next largest subfamily are just languages that are considered Benue Congo, but not Bantoid. Benue Congo languages include Bantu languages, Bantoid languages, and some others. These other languages in white are this family, and include languages such as Barome and Daka. These languages are spoken by around 50 million people, mainly in Nigeria. The Atlantic languages in purple, and Mande in turquoise, are two families that are disputed to be part of the Niger-Congo languages. They are mostly disputed because they don't have a diverse noun class system like many other Niger-Congo languages. Both of these families are spoken by around 40 million people in far western Africa. Atlantic languages include Yolof and Fula, while Mende languages include Bambara and Mandinka. The rest of the subfamilies make up 5% or less of speakers of the language family. The Kwa languages in dark blue, Sanufa languages in light green, Kru in light red, and Gur in pink are all subfamilies that are not disputed to be in the Niger-Congo language family. The Adawama Ubangian subfamily is also disputed, and the languages inside it are not closely related to each other, as it is just a geographic distinction. Finally, the core Dafarian languages in bright red, Dogon languages in dark green, and Ijoid languages in yellow are small subfamilies that are heavily disputed to be in this major family. The next largest language family by number of speakers, but only behind the Indo-European family by distribution of speakers, is the Austronesian languages, located across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Austronesian languages are spoken by around 330 million people. Most Austronesian languages use analytical morphology, except for the languages of the Philippines, which are mostly agglutinative. In terms of word order, the Austronesian languages are some of the most diverse. Many languages use SVO order, with especially those spoken in Indonesia and Malaysia using this order. SOV is in general pretty rare, but some languages use it in conjunction with others. The languages of the Philippines, along with the Oceanic languages, widely use the VSO word order, while Fijian and Malagasy use the rare VOS word order. Finally, the extremely rare OVS word order is used in the Aiwu language in the Eastern Solomon Islands. Most Austronesian languages use the Latin script, but some still use their traditional South Brahmic Abugidas. The most spoken Austronesian language is Javanese in Indonesia, with around 82 million speakers. A classic feature of Austronesian languages is reduplication, or where all or part of a word is reused to change the meaning of the word. For example, in Fijian, vale means house, while Vale Vale means houses. The Austronesian languages are widely agreed to have originated in Taiwan due to the diversity of the remaining Formosan languages in Taiwan. Around 2500 BC, the Austronesians began to expand outward and started one of the most impressive feats of humanity by covering thousands of miles from Madagascar in the west to Hawaii in the east, and from Taiwan in the north to New Zealand in the south, with wooden boats that could travel around 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, or 6 to 10 miles. By 2200 BC, they reached the Philippines. By 1500 BC, Indonesia. By 800 BC, Fiji. By 580 Madagascar. By 980 Hawaii. And finally, by 1200 AD, they reached New Zealand. The Austronesian family is one of the most diverse families with over 1200 languages. In general, there are no real defined subfamilies in the Austronesian family, except for the Oceanic languages in pink from Papua New Guinea to Hawaii. A distinctive feature of these Oceanic languages is the idea of an exclusive we, or having a different word for we, which includes the one being spoken to, and for we, which excludes the person being spoken to. These Oceanic languages are also part of the larger Malayo-Polynesian subfamily, which includes all Austronesian languages except for those on Taiwan, and contains over 99% of all speakers. Prominent Austronesian languages include Malagasy, Fijian, Javanese, Sundanese, Malay, and Tagalog. The Dravidian languages are spoken primarily in southern India and are spoken by over 250 million people. Most Dravidian languages use agglutinative morphology, as well as SOV word order. The majority of Dravidian languages use their native North or South Brahmic writing systems, but some do use the Latin script. The most spoken Dravidian language is Telugu, spoken in the Indian state of Telangana, with around 83 million people. Common features of Dravidian languages include an extensive use of retroflex consonants and a large number of case markings. As with other language families, two main origins are debated about for the Dravidian languages. The most simple idea is that some of the first peoples to migrate to the Indian subcontinent spoke an ancestor of the Dravidian languages, and most of the subcontinent spoke Dravidian languages before the arrival of the Indo-Europeans. The other idea states that the currently undeciphered language of the Indus Valley Civilization from around 2500 BC was an ancestor of Dravidian languages. This idea proposes that as the Indo-Europeans migrated, they pushed these ancestors of Dravidians to the south. Today, Dravidian languages are divided into four subfamilies of North in purple, Central in blue, with only around 2% speakers each. South Central in pink contains around 37% of speakers, with languages like Telugu and Gondi, and South in brown contains 61% of speakers, with languages like Tamil and Kannada. The Turkic languages are spoken by around 200 million people in Central Asia and the Middle East. Turkic languages are famous for using agglutinative morphology and also using SOV word order. Because they have been between so many large empires in history, they use many different writing systems. From Arab and Persian empires, some languages like Uyghur use a Perso-Arabic script. From Russian empires, some languages like Kyrgyz use Cyrillic, and some languages use the Latin script because they want to be seen as modern. The largest language is Turkish, spoken in Turkey, by around 90 million people. A distinctive feature of Turkic languages is vowel harmony, where the vowels in the suffix of a word, added through agglutination, match the vowel in the word. It is hypothesized that the ancient Turkic homeland was in modern-day Mongolia to the south of Lake Baikal. Because many Turkic peoples were nomads that traveled around the Eurasian steppe, they founded large empires that helped spread the language family. Especially the Göktürk Empire helped spread the family. Later on, around 1000 AD, the Seljuk Empire brought Turkic peoples to modern-day Turkey. Today, the Turkic languages are divided into 6 subfamilies. The Chuvash language is its own subfamily in central Russia. The Siberian languages are spread throughout eastern Russia. The Argu languages are a very small subfamily in Iran. The Kipchak languages in green are spoken by around 30 million people, with languages like Kazakh and Kyrgyz. The Karluk languages in purple are spoken by around 50 million people, with languages like Uzbek and Uyghur. Finally, the Oghuz languages in red are spoken by around 110 million people, with languages like Turkish and Azeri. The Austroasiatic languages are spoken by around 130 million people in South and Southeast Asia. Like many other East Asian languages, Austroasiatic languages are primarily analytic. Most Austroasiatic languages use SVO word order, but the Munda languages in India use SOV order. Many of these languages use their native Brahmic scripts, but many, like Vietnamese, also use the Latin script. By far, the most spoken Austroasiatic language is Vietnamese, with almost 90 million speakers primarily in Vietnam. Common characteristics of Austroasiatic languages include their tendency to be isolating, or have words composed of only one morpheme, and to have tone, with languages like Vietnamese being well known for having tones. The Austroasiatic languages likely originated in northeast Vietnam and southern China, with evidence supporting this around 2000 BC. These languages then spread south and likely reached islands such as Sumatra, Borneo, and Java before the Austronesians did. But upon the Austronesians' arrival in the Indonesian archipelago, they began to replace the Austroasiatic peoples there, and eventually the Austroasiatic peoples were confined to the mainland. Another group of Austroasiatics also likely migrated west to India, forming the Munda branch. Today, there are many subfamilies of Austroasiatic languages, but over 90% of speakers belong to one of three: Vedic in green, Khmer in teal, and Munda in yellow. Vedic has around 93 million speakers, with most speaking Vietnamese. Khmer has around 20 million speakers, with almost all speaking the Khmer language, which is the national language of Cambodia. Munda has around 10 million speakers in eastern India. Munda has languages such as Santali and Korku. The other subfamilies are Kasi Palamgunic in red, Kumik in purple, Mon in maroon, Perik in yellow, Katuic in dark blue, Baharnik in pink, Peconic in light brown, Aslian in dark brown, and Nicobarese in lime green. Altogether, these other subfamilies only make up 6% of Austroasiatic speakers. The Japonic languages are also spoken by around 130 million people, with almost all being in the nation of Japan. Over 120 million of these speakers speak standard Japanese, with the rest composed of the Ryukyuan languages spoken on the Ryukyu Islands south of Japan. The Japonic languages are agglutinative and use SOV word order. Japanese is famous for having a complicated writing system. This is because they really use three separate writing systems. They use two syllabaries, hiragana for native Japanese words, and katakana for words borrowed from other languages. Japanese also uses a logography called kanji, which is effectively borrowed from Chinese characters. A distinct feature of Japonic languages is how their cultural honorific system is heavily built into their grammar. For many words in Japanese, they have neutral, polite, honorific, and humble ways to say them, depending on the situation. The Japonic languages were likely brought to the Japanese archipelago in the first millennium BC from the Korean peninsula. From there, they never really spread except to the Ryukyuan Islands in the south and began to replace the native Ainu in the north of Japan. As Japanese takes up so many speakers in the family, and the only real split is between the different dialects of Japanese and the Ryukyuan languages, which are spoken by up to 1.5 million people. The Kra-Dai languages are spoken by around 85 million people in Southeast Asia, mostly in Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and China. As with many other East and Southeast Asian languages, they are mostly analytical and use the SVO word order. Kra-Dai languages are written in both native South Brahmic scripts and Latin script. The most spoken language in the family is Thai, which, depending on what dialects are considered Thai, can have between 27 and 60 million speakers. Kra-Dai languages are heavily tonal, largely isolating, and have a system of noun classifiers. Because of the linguistic diversity of Kra-Dai languages in southeast China, it is thought that the language family originated in south-central China and spread south, with the languages replacing Austroasiatic-speaking peoples in Southeast Asia. Over 75% of Kra-Dai speakers are part of the Southwest Thai family, in pink, spoken in Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, with languages such as Thai, Lao, and Kachin. On the island of Hainan are the subfamilies of Bei in purple and Hlai in red. In South China are the subfamilies of Northern Thai in yellow and Central Thai in blue, which together make up around 20% of the family. These two subfamilies are mostly composed of one language called Shuang, which is very diverse. Along with these two subfamilies are Kra in green and Kam Sui in brown. The Koreanic language family isn't really a family, as it is only composed of the Korean language, and the Korean dialect on Jeju Island is sometimes considered a separate language. If Jeju is considered a dialect of Korean, this would make Korean by far the most spoken language isolate, with over 80 million speakers concentrated in North and South Korea, as well as some parts of China. Like Japanese, Korean is agglutinative and uses SOV word order. Korean uses its own native Hangul script, which looks like Chinese characters, but actually function as an alphabet, not a logography. Also like Japanese, Korean has a heavy honorific system built into their language. It is likely that an ancestor of Korean has been spoken on the peninsula since before the year 0, but sources are rare and do point to the fact that there used to be greater linguistic diversity on the Korean peninsula. The Nilo-Saharan languages are a proposed language family in Central and Eastern Africa, spoken by approximately 70 million people. But this region of the world has possibly the least reliable data of anywhere, so this number could be wildly different. Each subfamily is agreed to have internal genetic relationships, but the overall genetic connection is still unproven. Some people believe that the languages are only grouped together because they are African languages that don't belong to the Niger-Congo, Afroasiatic, or Khoisan families. The morphology of the languages is diverse, but a majority are agglutinative, and they are split between SVO and SOV word order. They are also split between Arabic and Latin writing scripts. The linguistic diversity of this family is extremely high, with the largest language Dinka only having 2 million speakers. One feature that somewhat unites the family is adding markings to the end of nouns that are singular, with plural versions of nouns being the base instead of singular. Most languages in the family are also tonal. The largest subfamily is Nilotic in Tan, with around 31 million speakers, and languages such as Luo, Dinka, and Nuer. The second largest subfamily is Saharan in green, with around 10 million speakers, and languages such as Kanuri and Dhaka. The only other subfamilies with over 5% of speakers are the Songhai languages in orange and Central Sudanic languages in dark blue. The rest of the families are small, with Maban in gray, Fur in pink, Numang/Afiti in gray-green, Tamain/Kaiga/Juru in orange, Daju in purple, Komus in light blue, Jebel in maroon, Kunama in dark gray, Nera in bright yellow, Kuliak in dark red, and Berta in dark green. The Uralic languages are spoken by around 23 million people throughout Central and Northern Europe, as well as Russia. The Uralic languages are a classic example of agglutination and either use the SOV word order, or in some cases, have extremely variable word order. Many Uralic languages use Latin script, but as many are in Russia, some also use Cyrillic. The most spoken Uralic language is Hungarian, with around 14 million speakers. There are many proposed homelands for the Uralic languages, but in general, it seems to be somewhere around the Ural Mountains and surrounding rivers. They then spread west into areas around Finland, and the Hungarians specifically migrated from the Ural Mountains to Central Europe around 900 AD. After Hungarian and Orange, which takes up around 60% of Uralic speakers, are the Finnic languages in blue, with around 7.5 million speakers, mainly of Finnish and Estonian. The rest of the subfamilies make up around 9% of speakers, with Sami in white, Samoyedic in pink, Khanty in tan, Mansi in pink, Permic in green, Mari in purple, and Mordvin in red.